My mom and dad were like, oh, you can't go out with a musician, they just weren't into the music situation.
Gerald Levert was a multi-talented musician who is considered to be among the most talented in the history of R&B music. He was a singer, songwriter, and music producer. Furthermore, he possessed a voice that was not only incredibly beautiful, but also incredibly smooth, profound, and powerful. Gerald was able to infuse even his most tranquil tracks with vitality and feeling by utilizing his exceptionally powerful voice. Nevertheless, his girlfriend recently gave an interview to the public and confirmed some rumors that circulated about his romantic life. However, before we get into that, we need to take a more in-depth look at his early life in order to gain a better understanding of the factors that worked to mold him into the person he eventually became. His early life. Gerald Levert was born on July 13, 1966, in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. Sean Levert was the name of his only brother, who was born in 1968. He was the only sibling he had. The fact that Gerald was born into a musical family would have a significant impact on his professional life in the future. He was raised in Shaker Heights, which is a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. As the lead singer of the well-known R&B group known as the O'Jays, his father, Eddie Levert, was a member of the band. Not only did his band play a significant part in the formation of the Philadelphia soul sound of the 1970s, but they also achieved worldwide fame after some time had passed. On the other hand, Gerald's mother, Martha Levert, was a housewife who raised both him and his brother by herself, due to the fact that their father was absent for the majority of the time. Eddie, on the other hand, instilled in them a sense of discipline that would later prove to be extremely beneficial. After being raised in such an environment, it was inevitable that music would play a significant role in Gerald's day-to-day life from the very beginning. Beginning at a young age, he was exposed to the inner workings of the music industry and was surrounded by legends of the industry. It was the O'Jays' influence that would motivate Gerald and his brother to pursue their own musical endeavors in their own unique ways. On the other hand, he occasionally sang in church and school, and it became abundantly clear to everyone who was in his immediate vicinity that Gerald was destined to follow in the footsteps of his legendary father. At the time that Gerald and Sean were in their teenage years, they had already begun to take music seriously. Because of this, their father made the decision to bring them along with him to recording sessions and concerts. This gave them the opportunity to learn about the intricate details of vocal arrangements, songwriting, and stage performances. In addition, Gerald was afforded a one-of-a-kind opportunity to witness the ups and downs of being a professional musician as a result of his father's position as a well-respected figure in the industry. The information that Gerald gained from this experience was extremely helpful in gaining an understanding of the technical and emotional requirements that were necessary to achieve success in the music industry. The broader musical trends of the 1970s and 1980s had a significant impact on Gerald, in addition to the influence that his father had on him to begin with, particularly in terms of their vocal delivery and their capacity to convey profound emotion through song. Musicians such as Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and Teddy Pendergrass served as significant sources of inspiration for him. Gerald would go on to say that they were the primary influences on his own vocal style, which he would blend the emotional depth of soul music with contemporary R&B grooves. He would say this in a later statement. Early career. Even when he was still a young boy, Gerald had a strong desire to carve out his own identity within the world of music. This was one of the defining characteristics of his career. His father's fame opened a lot of doors for him, but it also brought about plenty of expectations. Gerald was well aware that being Eddie's son presented its own unique set of difficulties, and from the very beginning, he was resolute in his determination to demonstrate his worth on his own terms. It was during his teenage years that he and his brother Sean began experimenting with music and writing songs. It was during this time that his competitive spirit and drive for excellence began to emerge. In the early years of their career, his mother Martha also played a significant role. Later on, Gerald spoke about his mother, describing how she helped mold his personality and kept him grounded despite the chaos that was present in the entertainment industry. Gerald, on the other hand, was determined to bring the sound he had grown up with into the modern era by incorporating more contemporary R&B elements into the classic soul framework that his father had been using. When Gerald was in his late teens, he, along with his brother Sean and a childhood friend named Mark Gordon, established the R&B group that they called Levert. They named the group after themselves. His first significant step towards building his career was the formation of Levert in 1983. Despite the fact that he carried the weight of his father's legacy, he quickly demonstrated that he was a talented individual in his own right. Levert made their debut in the music industry with the release of their I Get Hot album in 1985. This album served as the group's introduction to the music industry. Despite the fact that the album did not have a significant impact on the commercial market, it was instrumental in establishing the identity of the band and beginning to build their fan base. There was some attention paid to the title track, I Get Hot, but it wasn't until the group's later releases that they were able to truly break into the mainstream public consciousness. Following that, in 1986, they released their second album, which was titled Bloodline. This album featured one of the band's first R&B hits, which was titled Goes My Mind. But it was their third album, which was released in 1987 and was titled The Big Throwdown. That was the one that really put them on the map. This album's standout single, which was titled Casanova, went on to become the group's first major hit. The song became a crossover success, having even achieved significant chart success in the United Kingdom. It reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reached #5 on the chart. Not only was Casanova notable for its catchy melody and smooth vocals, but it was also notable for its ability to appeal to audiences that were interested in R&B purists as well as mainstream pop audiences. Not only was this an impressive accomplishment for an R&B group at the time, but it also established Levert as one of the few acts in the genre to achieve such a high level of success in the mainstream. Gerald's powerful voice was quickly recognized as one of the leading voices of the era, and Levert became a household name in the R&B industry as a result of this song because of its popularity. As a result of the success of the song, the group began to make appearances on a variety of radio stations and television shows, which led to an increase in their visibility. Levert continued to build momentum with the release of their fourth album, Just Coolin', in 1988, which followed the success of their previous album, The Big Throwdown. They achieved even greater success in the R&B world with the release of this album, which resulted in the release of another major hit titled Addicted to You. Their success throughout the 1980s was built on their ability to balance soulful ballads with upbeat and danceable tracks. On the other hand, Gerald's voice enabled him to navigate a wide range of emotions in his music, from love and heartbreak to joy and passion. This was the foundation of their success. However, during the late 1980s, the R&B genre was undergoing a transformation, and a greater emphasis was being placed on synthesizers, drum machines, and slick production. This was in contrast to the more organic, band-driven sound of the 1970s soul genre. This shift was skillfully embraced by Gerald and his group, who incorporated contemporary production techniques while preserving the emotional depth and vocal richness that were characteristic of the classic soul genre. As a result of combining elements from the past and the present, their sound became appealing to a wide variety of listeners, which earned them respect within the industry. Gerald's talents included not only singing, but also writing songs and producing music. His contributions to the creative process included acting as a primary songwriter and producer for Levert's albums. He took an active role in the creative process. The significance of maintaining control over one's musical compositions was a lesson that Gerald learnt from his father, and he took this advice to heart. Gerald was able to mold the sound of the group in a manner that was actually reflective of his own personal vision, because he was the one who wrote and produced a significant number of the group's songs. However, in addition to his work with his group, Gerald also began collaborating with other artists and producing music for a variety of different projects. His songwriting and production would eventually extend beyond R&B into a wide variety of different musical styles. But the accomplishments he achieved in the early stages of his career laid the groundwork for the enormous success he would go on to enjoy in the years to come. In spite of the fact that his band continued to enjoy success, Gerald harbored the desire to pursue a career as a solo artist. He would be able to achieve a new level of artistic freedom as a result of this, which would enable him to explore more personal themes while continuing to shape the sound of contemporary R&B. In 1991, Gerald released his first solo album, which was titled Private Line. This album signified a significant turning point in his solo career, almost immediately after its release. A significant amount of success was achieved by the album, as it climbed to the top spot on the Billboard R&B Albums chart. This was a resounding demonstration of his capacity to make the transition from being a member of a group to performing as a solo artist. One of the songs that became one of the most iconic songs of the early 1990s was one of the tracks that was included on the album that was named after the album itself. The song was a deep and seductive ballad that highlighted Gerald's baritone voice, which was rich and full. In spite of this, he considered the song Baby Hold On To Me to be the best track on the album. This is due to the fact that he and his father Eddie performed it together as a duet. Not only did the song reach the top of the R&B charts, but it also demonstrated the strong connection that exists between the two of them. Having the opportunity to work with his son was a source of great pride for Eddie, and the song quickly became a mainstay in both of their repertoires. On the other hand, Baby Hold On To Me struck a chord with fans on a profound level as well. This was due to the honest lyrics and emotional delivery of the song, which perfectly captured the genuine love that exists between a father and his son. The album Private Line featured a large number of songs that dealt with topics such as love, relationships, and vulnerability. These are topics that became a defining characteristic of his solo work. While on the other hand, the success of the album was evidence that Gerald was able to distinguish himself in the extremely competitive music industry, and it also laid the groundwork for a solo career that would last for more than a decade. In the wake of the success of his debut, Gerald continued to release music that further solidified his position as a leading man in the R&B genre. With the release of his second solo album, Groove On, in 1994, he achieved yet another significant level of success. In this particular album, he was able to successfully combine smooth ballads with tracks that were more up-tempo and groove-oriented. The song I'd Give Anything was the most successful single from the album. It was a powerful ballad that highlighted Gerald's voice and his ability to convey profound feelings. Groove On also featured a combination of modern R&B and classic soul influences, with Gerald skillfully balancing contemporary production techniques and timeless lyrical themes throughout the album. He was able to deliver slow jams as well as upbeat tracks, which earned him a wide range of fans, including fans of traditional soul music, as well as younger people who were looking for new sounds. By the late 1990s, Gerald had firmly established himself as a solo musician who was capable of crafting hits across a variety of musical styles. The following year, in 1998, he released his album titled Love and Consequences, which demonstrated his ongoing personal development as an artist. Gerald's maturation as a man and as a musician was reflected in the album, which was a reflection of his maturity. Some of his most introspective work to date was included in it, and it dealt with topics such as love and heartbreak, in addition to concerns about responsibility. The lead single, which was titled Thinkin' 'Bout It, became yet another massive hit, and it topped the R&B charts upon reaching #1. Gerald's signature style was characterized by raw emotion that was conveyed through a polished and soulful sound. The song's smooth groove and confessional lyrics reflected this style. At that time, in addition to his work as a solo musician, he was also becoming increasingly well known for his work as a songwriter and producer. In the late 1990s, Gerald was a producer who worked behind the scenes on projects for other artists. He was responsible for producing tracks that would contribute to the development of the sound of contemporary R&B. He was responsible for writing and producing songs for a wide variety of artists, including Barry White, Anita Baker, Eugene Wilde, The Rude Boys, New Edition, Men at Large, and a great number of others. In addition, he was a member of the band Black Men United, which released a single called You Will Know that was an instant hit. After that, he collaborated with Jim Brickman on the song My Angel, and also performed a duet with Tina Marie on her album titled La Doña. Shortly after that, in 1997, Gerald gathered other very popular R&B stars at the time and decided to form with them the supergroup that they appropriately named LSG. Other members of the group were Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill, and the name of the group was derived from the first letter in the last name of each artist. L stands for Levert, S in Sweat and G in Gill. It turned out that this collaboration was a huge success, as evidenced by the fact that their debut album was certified double platinum. My Body, the hit single from the album, dominated the R&B charts and reached #1 on almost all of them. It was the album's most successful single. LSG became one of the most successful supergroups of the era as a result of this. Gerald considered the success of LSG to be a particularly noteworthy accomplishment because it gave him the opportunity to experiment with a variety of musical styles and to work with artists of comparable stature. There was no denying the undeniable chemistry that existed between Levert, Sweat, and Gill, and the fact that their talents were combined turned LSG into a formidable opponent in the world of R&B. Throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, Gerald continued to release albums that were commercially successful after the release of LSG. Another album that he released in 1999, which he named with just one letter G, was a significant commercial and critical success. Taking Everything was one of the songs that was featured on the album. The song dealt with topics such as love, loss, and the emotional pain that comes with breakups. Subsequently, in the year 2002, he released an album that he titled The G-Spot, which served to further illustrate his capacity for versatility as a musician. In addition to featuring collaborations with artists such as Manny Fresh, the album featured a combination of slow jams that were seductive and tracks that were more upbeat and radio-friendly. Due to the fact that it was a combination of traditional R&B sound and more contemporary production techniques, it enabled him to maintain his relevance in a music landscape that is going through rapid change. The solo career of Gerald continued to flourish throughout the early years of the new millennium. Do I Speak for the World was his album that was released in 2004. The album was notable for its political and social commentary, which touched on issues such as inequality and injustice. Despite this, the album still maintained the romantic and soulful elements that his fans cherished. Gerald's album was a demonstration of his ability to address significant issues that society was facing at the time, while also demonstrating his ability to do so in a respectful manner. Crucify Me, Greater Later, and What Happened to the Lovin' were the songs that had the most significant impact on the scene. In spite of this, his final solo album, titled In My Songs, was released after his death in 2007, and it went on to win a Grammy Award for Best Traditional R&B Vocal Performance. With the same emotional depth and vocal power that had characterized Gerald throughout his entire career, the album was a fitting tribute to the legacy that he had left behind. Career in acting. Gerald had a modest acting career in addition to his significant achievements in music. However, he made some very memorable appearances in a few projects that highlighted his versatility as an entertainer as well. Both of these accomplishments were noteworthy. During the latter part of the 1990s, he made his acting debut on the show The Jamie Foxx Show. Charles Young was the name of the character that he played in the 2 episodes that he appeared in. His first appearance on the show was on an episode titled Just Don't Do It, which was broadcast on November 5, 1998. Despite the fact that Jamie was adamantly opposed to the idea, Gerald's character eventually fell in love with Jamie's mother and made the decision to marry her. His charming personality and hilarious sense of humor made him an ideal candidate for roles in sitcoms, and his appearance on The Jamie Foxx Show was the episode that marked the beginning of his brief acting career. The following year, in January of 2001, Gerald made another appearance in the final episode of the show, which was titled Always and Forever. Gerald sang the opening ceremony at the wedding, and he was joined by a couple of other singers such as Gladys Knight and Marilyn McCoo. In this particular episode, Jamie and his wife on the show ended up getting married. Following his appearance on The Jamie Foxx Show, he appeared in the documentary film Standing in the Shadows of Motown, which was released in the year 2002. The legendary Funk Brothers were the session musicians who contributed to many of Motown's most successful songs, and this documentary was about them. The movie featured Gerald paying tribute to the artists and musicians who had an impact on his own career by performing live renditions of classic Motown songs. His performance in the movie received a lot of praise for its emotional depth and his ability to channel the spirit of Motown through his own unique style. There was a lot of praise for his performance. In the most recent episode of the television show, The Parkers, he appeared as a guest star. His portrayal of a character named Thad Radcliffe who was the father of one of the show's regular characters named Tyrell T. Radcliffe, was included in the show's history. According to the narrative, Gerald's character traveled to the town in order to pay a visit to his son and also to join forces with him in a band. The episode was broadcast on Monday, November 10, 2003. His brother. Following the decision made by Gerald and his brother Sean to leave their family group, Sean also decided to pursue a career as a solo artist, just like his brother. It was in 1995 when Sean released his first and only solo album, which was titled The Other Side. This album marked the beginning of Sean's career as a solo artist. In addition to reaching number 22 on the Billboard R&B Albums chart, the album also reached number 146 on the Billboard 200 chart. It was released under the records label Atlantic Records. This album featured 2 singles that were particularly noteworthy. The initial one was titled Put Your Body Where Your Mouth Is, and it climbed all the way up to the 40th spot on the R&B chart in the world. In addition to retaining the smooth R&B sound that he was known for while he was in the group with his brother, the song featured a seductive groove and a soulful melody that brought out his voice. Similar one was the title of the second single, which was released, and it peaked at position 57 on the R&B charts. Despite the fact that this song did not achieve the same level of success as the previous one, it was still able to demonstrate Sean's ability to perform emotionally charged R&B ballads. In spite of the fact that this album was only moderately successful, Sean's solo career did not achieve the same level of success as his brother's careers did. On the other hand, it offered evidence of his willingness to make an effort to carve out his own niche within the industry. His musical style remained consistent with the smooth, romantic ballads that characterized a significant portion of his work with the family group. However, his solo musical endeavors gave him the opportunity to investigate his very own identity as an artist. When Sean was not working on his solo album, his career continued to be intertwined with acting and collaborations with his family. Throughout his career, he continued to give live performances, particularly in collaboration with Gerald, with whom he had a strong personal and professional connection. In spite of this, Sean's music career was eventually overshadowed by his struggles with legal issues, personal challenges, and health problems in the years that followed, Gerald's love life, and the rumors that surround it. Gerald's personal life was filled with a wide variety of women, and he was known to be quite a ladies' man. His love life was a very chaotic affair. Some information about his personal relationships has come to light over the years, despite the fact that he kept his personal relationships relatively private. He was in a relationship with Kim Whitley, who was both an actress and a comedian. This was one of the most notable relationships that he had. Recently, she discussed him on her podcast, Two Funny Mamas, which she hosts with her friend, Sherry Shepard. She also mentioned him in the podcast. While Kim was talking about him in great detail, she revealed information about their relationship and talked about how they first met. She mentioned that they had grown up in close proximity to one another and had first met when they were kids. Before they started dating, they were just good friends for the first couple of years of their relationship. However, after some time had passed, they began to develop feelings for one another and eventually began dating. Nevertheless, when her parents learnt about their relationship, they informed her that she needed to end her relationship with him because they did not want their daughter to be romantically involved with a guitarist. Kim made the decision to disobey her parents and continue dating Gerald despite the fact that she had fallen head over heels in love with him from the beginning of their connection. Kim also mentioned that she was a source of inspiration for a few of his songs, including the one titled Addicted to You, which she mentioned as an example. One morning, she called him and told him that she was addicted to him. Gerald responded to her by telling her that he was experiencing the same feelings as she does. In point of fact, this occasion served as the impetus for him to compose that song. When Kim made the decision to relocate to Hollywood in order to pursue her dreams of becoming an actress and a comedian, however, she encountered a number of difficulties. As soon as she moved there, she stated that they would never be able to make their relationship work in any meaningful way. At the same time that she was an aspiring actress who was working hard to achieve success in her own endeavors, Gerald was a well-known singer who had a packed schedule. Because of this, they came into conflict with one another. Kim stated that Gerald required a wife who would always be at home waiting for him, and not an actress who had her own life. Kim was referring to the fact that Gerald needed a bride, The reason he told her that there could be only one star in this family was because of this statement. When Gerald told her that, she was hurt and really angry at him because she didn't understand his reasoning at all. At first, she didn't understand his reasoning at all. However, Kim has stated that she now completely understands what he is saying and that if she were in his position, she would react in a similar manner. Following their breakup, they continued to maintain a close relationship with one another and remained friends, but they chose to date other people. Kim has been there for him throughout his entire life, and she has even listened to him vent about the other women he has experienced romantic relationships with. In addition, Kim and Gerald came to an agreement that if they were not married by the time they reached the age of 50, they would marry each other instead. However, Gerald never tied the knot, despite the fact that he ended up having 3 children by 3 different women. Concerning the names of these women, there is no information available. Nevertheless, the name of his family is carried by all 3 of his children. Kim made a statement towards the end of the podcast in which she expressed her regret that he had abandoned her and that they would never be able to make their relationship work. On the other hand, there is an interview in which he is quoted as saying that Kim Whitley was without a doubt the one and only true love all throughout his life. This demonstrated that the love that they had for one another was genuine and not merely a passionate bit of fun during their time together. Gerald Levert, who was 40 years old at the time of his death, passed away on November 10, 2006 at his residence in Cleveland, Ohio, as a result of a fatal heart attack. In the beginning, it was stated that the condition was brought on by a number of different health complications. On the other hand, the official coroner's report, which was released in February 2007, provided additional information a few months later. They came to the conclusion that Gerald's death was brought on by acute intoxication brought on by the combined effects of prescription and over-the-counter medications, such as Vicodin, Percocet, and Xanax. It was prescribed to him to treat the pain that he was experiencing as a result of shoulder surgery that he had experienced prior to his passing. The combination of these medications, in conjunction with his existing health conditions, proved to be fatal. It has been determined that the official cause of death was an accident. Legacy. The passing of Gerald Levert was a tragic loss for the music industry, but his legacy as one of the most soulful and powerful voices in R&B will live on forever. In addition to his contributions as a singer, songwriter, and producer, his influence on the genre continues to serve as a source of inspiration for those who are just beginning their careers as musicians. Gerald's music consistently conveyed the breadth and depth of human feeling, whether it was during his time with Levert or during his successful solo career. Gerald Levert is a figure in the history of music that will endure for generations to come because of his ability to move people through his emotionally charged performances, as well as his lyrics that are easily relatable and frequently deeply personal.